you've ever found yourself avoiding pricing conversations because you don't want to deal with potential pushback, or maybe you change your business strategy based on one negative comment, or you feel completely drained after client calls, then this episode is for you, because about 50% of people have what's called an undefined solar plexus center in human design. And it's probably a big reason why you might be absorbing everyone else's emotional energy. And you may actually identify as someone who's really emotional, but usually it's not yours, right? Because you are amplifying everyone else's energy. And that can make it really hard for you to make clear business decisions that are grounded in your own truth, right? So let's start with what the undefined solar plexus is. So the solar plexus center in general, that's our emotional center in human design. So it's all about our emotions. It's where passion lives. It's where depth lives. And so when it's undefined, you basically don't have consistent access to your own emotional clarity, right? I'm an undefined solar plexus as well. And I'm also a Cancerian. And so in astrology, and so I've always had this weird relationship with emotions, because I do identify as someone that is really emotional. But before I sort of really understood human design and astrology as well, I guess I overly attached my decision-making to what other people were going to respond and how they were going to respond, right? And so what's happening when you're undefined in this area is you're taking in and you're amplifying the emotional energy of other people, right? And so the way that this shows up in business is maybe you avoid, this was me, you avoid pricing conversations and difficult client conversations. Like, for example, you might put off sending invoices, right? Or you might even, I noticed this happening even when I was doing webinars and masterclasses, is I would race through the pitch. I would deliver a 1-hour masterclass and give myself 1 minute or 2 minutes to do the pitch, because there was this part of me that was how are people going to react to this price, right? Or maybe you put off sending invoices or raising your prices because you don't want to deal with any potential pushback, right? Or maybe you let clients cross boundaries because confronting them feels too emotionally heavy. Maybe they're contacting you a lot outside of business hours, or they're, just pushing, or maybe it's in the DMs, right? And someone is asking you a lot of questions, and maybe you answer them at the start, and now you're starting to feel I'm kind of giving a lot of free advice away in the DMs here. And I know this is not a good business strategy, but I just can't help myself, right? And you're putting off setting that boundary because what if they hate me? What if they drag my name through the mud? What if they send me a nasty message, right? And so you're making business decisions to keep everyone else comfortable, right? You might be offering discounts, right? When clients push back, right? Because saying no feels too harsh, right? Or too hard. Or I've had people in the past where I've pitched whatever my pricing is, and people will be like, okay, well, what if we did this instead? What if we just did, this many, Slack days and this many calls instead, trying to, I guess, get the price down. And I've just kind of gone along with that, and then ended up feeling really resentful, because I am someone that loves to deliver a lot of value. I take my work so seriously. And the energetic space that I hold, it doesn't really matter how many calls there are, right? I'm still holding that space for that client, but pushing back and asserting that boundary felt really challenging for me. It was almost like I'm being harsh, which is not the case, but that's the thing that I told myself, right? Or maybe you change your content strategy because someone said one negative thing, right? And so it's coming from this place of what if I upset people, right? And you freeze when any business decision is going to involve emotion, right? You can make logical choices really easily, but the moment emotions enter the chat, yours or other people's, client emotions, team emotions, people around you, you completely shut down. And when you have an undefined solar plexus, you are unconsciously operating when in the unhealthy expression from, I need to avoid emotional conflict at all costs. And so that unhealthy expression sounds like, I can't make this decision if it is going to upset someone. Or what if they have an emotional reaction? Or I'll wait until everyone feels better about this before I make this move. Or it's a me problem. It's not anyone else. It's a me thing. But what's actually happening is you're not just an emotional person. You don't need to wait or avoid that conversation, or like there's actually nothing inherently wrong. Like you are playing out, and I always say this to my undefined solar plexus clients, like the way you are playing it out in your brain is so much worse than it actually is in reality, right? Because you're amplifying everyone's emotion. Like you walk outside and you're amplifying everyone else's emotional energy. And so that overwhelming feeling that you get when you have to have a difficult conversation, it's probably not even your emotion. It's probably not even that anything is bad. It's just the experience that you have as an undefined solar plexus. I had a client who told me that she started dreading client calls because she'd feel so completely drained afterwards, and when we looked at her chart, she had an undefined solar plexus and she was just taking on like all of her client stress. It was like she would have the call, but then she'd be thinking about it afterwards, right? Or like a client would be having a rough time and she would really internalize it. And this was something that was really, really big for me. And I had to really I had to stop like my client work for a little bit because I found it really hard to separate myself from that experience, even though I was cutting my cords. Like after every call, I'd have my, all my selenite crystal and my like everything, right? But I still found it really hard to separate. And it's only, I guess, come with time and practice of like asserting boundaries and having healthy conflict and realizing, wow, I made this out to be so much worse than it was going to be. Like it wasn't until I kind of got a few of those things under my belt that I started feeling a lot better and stopped internalizing things as much. And so with this client, we implemented some strategic things around, boundaries and how she was packaging up her offers. But we also did a lot of that energetic work as well, because that's really important. You need to empty out, right, everyone else's, solar plexus energy. So cutting your cords constantly is a really good thing to start doing. Anyway, let's continue. When you're operating from this avoid emotional conflict energy, every business choice is being filtered through that. It's being filtered through, will this create emotional drama, instead of what's actually right for my business? And often what your business needs is different to what you need. And so if everything is being filtered through like yourself and this like energy of like, is this going to create emotional drama for me? You're probably not making the best decisions for your business, right? And no strategy fixes that. And this can create a lot of emotional noise, and you stop hearing your authentic guidance. You stop hearing your capital S self, right? You're too busy managing everyone else's emotional reactions that haven't happened yet, right? Those emotional reactions have not happened yet, but you're too busy managing that to trust in your own decision-making, right? It's like, I always think of I think the archetype that really fits the undefined solar plexus, I don't know if this is relevant for you, but it is for me. Like my mum growing up was like always the one that was like making sure that everyone was okay. And like our house was the house that like all our friends came to, like myself and my brothers. We always had our friends over because my mum would just take care of everyone. Like food, everything, like you would probably be made to wash the dishes and like hang out the washing and do things like that if you were my friend. But yeah, it was just a home that was like, yeah, like and even now, I often joke with friends and I'm like, my mum would still make my lunch if she lived in the same place as me. And if I let her, like I remember when my husband and I first got married and we moved out, and I made the mistake of giving my mum a key, and she would just let herself in and then she'd send me a text. This is back when I was a lawyer and my husband was traveling a lot because he was playing basketball, and she'd send me a text and be like, oh, I left like Croatian, my mom's a Croatian pasta, and I left, salad, and I left potato bacon, all these things. And I just put it in the fridge, and like, I've got everything ready for your dinner tonight, and like, that feels like the undefined solar plexus is just running around making sure everyone else is okay. But think about how many business decisions that have been made from that energy, instead of capital S self, right? What business decisions have you avoided or delayed? Like so many team decisions, I feel, for me have been like, I'll like, shift something in my team and I'll be like, damn, I should have done that a year ago, right? How many things have you avoided or delayed because you were worried about someone else's emotional response? How many boundaries have you not set because confrontation felt really heavy? Right? And so having an undefined solar plexus doesn't mean that you're not cut out for business. It doesn't even mean that things are necessarily going to be harder for you. In fact, it's really designed to help you become really wise about emotional energy, really wise about boundaries, really wise about truth telling, right? Like it's really yeah, this truth-telling energy of like, I know what's real and what's not real. Like I know I can cut through the bullshit. I always think that the undefined solar plexus center people are like you just have such a good bullshit radar, right? But first you need to stop like avoiding those emotional conversations. Like start small, start testing yourself. It's going to feel really scary. Like the first time that I started setting boundaries around things, like, I mean, I shut down my most profitable program that generated multiple six figures in revenue every year because I didn't know how to operate it in a healthy, undefined solar plexus way. But I needed to cut that cord. I needed to draw a line in that sand. And literally everything since that, it's like apples and oranges. Like everything since that time is completely shifted because I've seen what it's like now to trust in my capital S self, right? And to start testing that, right? So some practical steps for this. Again, before making business decisions, like ask yourself, is this my emotion or am I amplifying someone else's? Like you might have convinced yourself that it's a yes, that you've had a sacral response to something, for example, but just check in, like take that extra step, right? If you're feeling overwhelming emotions about a decision, step away from other people's energy first. Go and take a walk at the park, cut your cords, like really empty out, do some kind of energetic practice, have a bath, like, or have a shower and let the water like run off and really visualize and bring it to your mind that like, that's what you're washing off your body. Like you are going to need as an emotional, an undefined solar plexus person, you're going to need to commit to these practices, not just when you have a business decision that you need to make, but regularly, right? Start creating emotional boundaries, right? You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to like scrap a whole program, but just start to notice where you are taking on your client's stress or disappointment. How can you create a practice around that? Like little things like, are you checking, WhatsApp or Slack or your emails late at night when that's going to keep you up, right? Because you're amplifying that, right? Their emotional reaction to your pricing or your boundaries is information about them, not about you, okay? Practice having difficult conversations in small doses, right? Start with low stake situations. Start with like telling your husband that you don't like when he leaves his towel on the floor or something like that, right? Like start with a low stake situation. Send that invoice, set that boundary, start building your tolerance for other people's emotional reactions. And remember that any kind of emotional reaction is temporary. And just because someone is disappointed in the moment, doesn't mean that your decision was wrong, right? And often we're making it out to be so much worse than it actually is, okay? So understanding your undefined solar plexus is really going to help you see that you are not responsible for managing everyone else's emotional experience. Your job is to make good business decisions. Capital S self decisions, and let everyone else have their reactions. It doesn't mean not take their emotional, like to not take that into account at all, but other people's emotions are not your responsibility to manage. And this took me a number of years to really start to work with. And if you need to like create a reminder in your phone or something like that, every single day to really bring your, like, this is what I did when I started working with human design. I started with the ego center, and every single morning I sat with that. I sat with like, what does it mean to be an undefined ego center? Where do I feel like I'm trying to prove myself? Even in little ways, like in the home, like, or I can prove, like I noticed the other day, this is super random, but I noticed the other day that like, so I live in Lisbon, Portugal now, and I walk everywhere, like literally everywhere. It's not uncommon for me to do 10,000 steps before 10 a.m. And I noticed that like I was walking places that I could get a car to that were like a little bit further than usual because, well, I can prove myself. Like I can, like it was very undefined ego center. And I sat with that, I still have this regular practice where I sit with my undefined centers and like kind of have an open conversation with them. And I noticed like, like, I'm noticing that I'm doing this and I don't need to be doing this, right? So start a little practice like that, bring in your family to this, like tell your husband, like, this is what I'm working with. And I'd love some support in being held accountable to this. One of the things that we love to do in our programs when we're running like a live cohort and with our, alumni work as well. And we're creating an alumni community at the moment, which is really exciting. We're working on this behind the scenes. But when we're running a cohort, is to encourage people to connect with people who have similar designs, to really to create that accountability group, because the design experiment, the human design experiment, is like 7 years of deconditioning. And that's if you're committed to it every day. It's not an overnight thing, right? But when you stop avoiding those emotional conversations and you start trusting your guidance, like, your business is going to become so much clearer. Like, your boundaries will become stronger. Your decisions will become faster. And if you want to understand this in a little bit more depth, and you also want to understand all 9 centers in human design and how they are impacting your business decisions, make sure you grab the complete energy centers overview at the link below. You could also DM me patterns on Instagram as well, at jazzjervis_. And if you were also an undefined Ajna center, that's what we're exploring in the next episode. We've also got one for the ego center, or heart, will center, and the G center as well, because these are the centers where I notice the most conditioning with my clients. If you have an undefined Ajna center and you feel pressure to be certain about everything and how that's affecting your business confidence, we are exploring that in the next episode. So I'll see you there.